welcome to another episode of the Revenue Focused Marketer, where we discuss anything and everything related to marketing as well as data. My name is Hershey, and I'm your usual host. And I'm today joined with two very leaders in the industry that are going to kind of talk to us about what's really happening with AI implementation, and really touching on the topic of DeepSeek AI. So, first up, we have Rahul. Welcome, Rahul.
Yes, thank you.
So Rahul is the VP of Technical Operations at Growth Natives, and he's also implementing AI solutions and offerings. He is joined with Arpit today. Hi, Arpit.
Hi, Arshi.
Thank you for joining us today. So Arpit is the co-founder and the product head of DigGrowth. He's leading a very talented team of data engineers to find innovative AI solutions. So I'm really excited to kind of have these both experts with us today to have this conversation.
Same we are.
I think we so I think we can kind of dive into the big picture. And Arpit, I'd kind of love to start off with you. So China's AI capabilities have grown massively over the years, and some say DeepSeek AI is just another iteration of ChatGPT 4. What is really your take? And what do you think are some of the factors that have enabled China to compete at this level in AI and technology?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And let me just set some context and a bit of history. So, if you think about any country who is actually making such bold, big moves, there's a lot of things that go in behind the scenes. And that's what has happened with China. So, in order to really come up with this kind of innovation, there are some essential factors that are required. First and foremost is the government support and having that ambition of global impact. And I think that's there in their recipe. This should be powered with kind of futuristic research that happens in universities. Generally speaking, universities and their research and their patents are 2-3 years ahead of the overall advancement and learning curves. So you need to have that, and then it should be also backed by certain investor ecosystems along with, call it, innovation labs and big corporates. And that is also sort of developing in China. And then it should also have kind of engineering talent that is required. And specifically, if I talk about AI and some of the innovations there are two more things required. One is that you have that right infrastructure in terms of the compute, and do you have the right data? And if we go back somewhere like 20-30 years, China has generally been tagged as more like a copycat. But if you think about it, we always say that they have got their own Facebook, they've got their own Google, let's say Baidu is their search engine. While they're copying all those things, they've also built that infrastructure and ecosystem. The universities and the research right now, probably China is topping in terms of the number of patents that has been filed. And while they were building and copying these products, there has been an engineering talent that has now emerged. So they can easily innovate now. And at the same time, while these companies, because there's a good consumption that happened within China, there are like really big companies like Alibaba that have mushroomed, right? So now they have access to a good talent of engineers. They've got some really great tools that have got a lot of consumptions internally, which means there's a lot of data that's already there that can be used to model. And then finally, there's a difference in terms of the whole mindset. If you try to compare the US mindset, it's all about abundance. They have been obviously leading the innovation, but their approach has been throw money, throw resources, and try out things, be innovative, and fail fast. China, on the other hand, has developed a lot more frugal approach, I would say. And the outcome of this is models like DeepSeek and more, which is more about not just throwing money, but ensuring that there's an efficiency game as well. So I would say that it is following the footprints of OpenAI and some of the top models from US, but then there is a good substance into it in terms of innovations and efficiency.
I guess I have to ask, OpenAI is being is accusing DeepSeek AI of intellectual property theft, right? But some might even say, isn't it ironic given OpenAI itself trained on scrapes from the internet data? So do you think they're really being hypocritical in their approach? Like, would love to just get your thoughts on this.
What I think is it won't matter much now to OpenAI. And I was hearing the latest interview from Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and he clearly mentioned that there are more better things to focus. They are not going after DeepSeek. So, and then clearly there are other open source models available. Meta is one of them. They offer Llama as the open source. So it is not anymore just China versus US, or it's a whole altogether like a AI arm race that everyone wants to win.
Yeah, I think it's no longer, protecting its own monopoly for OpenAI
Yeah,
because like you said, there are other competitors out there.
yeah.
And I guess Arpit, let's talk about these. Meta, you kind of mentioned about the AI model like the Llama. What do you think are the strategic implications of these open source models for the industry? Like, do you think, having these different players, how is it really going to disrupt the industry? And is it going to really, impact how people are really adapting to AI now?
Yeah, I think definitely open source is welcome. I mean, we've seen it with Linux, and then being part of a startup where we're also trying to build and make impact in the industry. Open source is the way to go for us across everything that we offer, leveraging that work. And if you talk about from the perspective of Meta or let's say DeepSeek, they have their own point of view and their own strategic, I would say, considerations. Meta in particular has got a lot of undue advantage. Basically, they have access to so many of users across their social media platform, across WhatsApp, and anyways they are going to use a lot of these AI inferences. So making this open source, they're kind of leading it from the front, and if that can be standardized, that will actually be very positive in their own business context. To give you an example, let's say they've open source it, and there are a lot of startups they are going to start working on this open source models, and there would be a lot of development that has been now outsourced freely to a lot of people, and there's a whole ecosystem that is supporting it. Any net new optimization will directly impact their business. So for example, let's say somehow there are certain startups or in the community we are able to achieve 10% reduction in the overall cost and optimization. That will have a direct cost implication on how they are utilizing some of those tools and models. So indirectly it will have a business impact, and then they also want to have that brand impact that they are modern, they are up to speed, they want to lead the whole AI game. So that is more on the, I would say, on the Meta side. DeepSeek in general, I would say from the China context, they have made it very clear that they are not behind. They are not just copycat. There's a lot of innovation and efficiency gain that they can bring into the table. And DeepSeek is just one of the examples. And there are more examples. For DeepSeek, I would say the timing was very good. On one hand, US was announcing, I don't know, 500 or 600 billion dollars of AI investment, and then they countered it with this whole marketing and PR that does it really need that much of money? And that's how we have got so much buzz around DeepSeek. But there are more, in fact, within China, there are more models and companies that are coming up open source that are relatively also pretty good. So there is an element of having that AI dominance and challenging US and sort of position yourself as a soft power. And that is not like a overnight thing that has happened. It was somewhere back in 2016 and 17 when there was a model that sort of beat the real world champion on Go game that was named as AlphaGo, and that was a model that Google actually built, and that actually triggered that AI can actually challenge some of the human capabilities. And from there was this whole alignment in the China that by 2030 they want to be the leaders in AI, and that work in progress is now showing the results.
Definitely. I think it's so extremely important for people to be investing in AI, and that's how we're seeing sort of the shift being in terms of investment opportunities also. But I know many open source AI projects do struggle with monetization as an aspect. So, Rahul, maybe you can help us understand, what is the sort of long-term sustainability plan when it comes to DeepSeek AI? Do you think them sort of, having that funding from the government is going to help them stay afloat? Or like, what about other opportunities and other projects that are happening in China? How do you think their sustainability plan is working?
DeepSeek began as a quantitative trading firm. So it is not something like that they are not having some revenue on their plate. They are working like a typical company, you can say, like wherein like some of the revenue is being generated from the services side, and that particular revenue is acting as a fuel on the product side. So again, like, so this goes hands in hand. So that's why like they were able to invest that much, because they already have a well running business in behind, and which was acting as a fuel for this particular game changer, I would say. And moreover, down the line, what we can expect from them is like monetization via low cost APIs. See, for now, the buzz is like it's an open source, it's kind of a free, it's easy to use. Every new starter or every new developer can have that access. But down the line, what I personally feel is they are gonna bring some low cost but premium API services, because like I believe currently their focus is on the adoption. There is something, if not similar, but yes, competitive enough already in the market. So they want to have that audience first of all. They want to make the dependency first of all. They want that all the users across the globe should get used to it. So once the adoption is there, then they may come up with some pricing tweaks. As little as few cents per million tokens, you can say. But again, if you have volume of users, irrespective if you are quoting less or if you are generating your revenue slightly higher than your investment, but when you will do the total of all these things, the cumulative profitability will go huge, and that will give an advantage over the competitors in the market. So primarily I strongly believe, which is the right practice as well, that they should make this tool being used globally by maximum folks. This will help them to like get a major you can say a stake in the market. Plus maybe initial couple of months are going to be a good proof check of this tool, because when to start with maybe thousands of users are going to use that, definitely the feedback will also come. This is basically currently evolving. Maybe like we say, like initially usually the evolution is there, but maybe down the line revolution will come. So to start with, I think they are aiming on the market share, I would say. So maybe like it's currently a mixture of experts that they can bring in along with the optimized and ongoing refining models, because these techniques are gonna help them to a greater extent in a way. Maybe like it can reduce the number of active parameters during a task. For example, like I would say activating a fraction of a total of 671 billion parameters and allow the model to run on a less advanced hardware. That's where the edge is, because like the infra cost is also there. Then again, like because it's a new era, I would say an AI era, so the ecosystem and the community engagement is gonna impact as well. So by embracing an open source approach, DeepSeek invites a global community of developers. We see like there are like multiple communities. Maybe we talk about HubSpot, maybe we talk about Salesforce, any renowned tool that is being adapted globally, that comes with a global community of the developers who are gonna suggest their improvements as well. They might build some derivative applications on top of that and maybe integrate its model with another ecosystem. So this collaborative ecosystem will not only accelerate innovation and adoption, but also will open the door to many other opportunities. Maybe down the line we can have some consultants. So once you have that much muscle, like which is working on your particular community, then definitely that opens the doors to another verticals as well. So we need to understand like they are starting very small, but they are very thoughtful about it. So initially, typically, the focus is just to have the capture the market, make everyone dependent on it, or maybe like every man part dependent on it. And once we are like used to, or once we are like dependent on any of such tools, then definitely the usage, the adaptability, the acceptance of all such tools keep on increasing day by day. And that's what they are aiming at. Currently, they are not focusing primarily, or I would say majorly, on the revenue generation. Only focus is to get a good amount, good handy users on this tool, and who are using this tool globally, not in any specific market. So I think these all parameters are definitely gonna help them down the line.
I think that's really helpful, Rahul. From what I can understand, is they're kind of playing the long game instead of just focusing of upfront front profits. They're kind of building an AI ecosystem that will sustain over time. What I kind of want to ask you, Arpit, is when we talk about adoption, of course, costing is, a huge aspect, and the lower costing here helps. But there's also a lot of ethical considerations that are coming up with kind of utilizing, Chinese AI. India's already banned TikTok because of the kind of, claims that they had of the Chinese government having access to people's data. And the similar shift we saw in the US also. That's a fight that's kind of ongoing still. So TikTok is just giving you inferences of what people like, dislike behaviors, but a format like DeepSeek AI will have a lot more private information. People can really have conversations about their personal lives, their personal, their work lives. They can share their strategies. They can be sharing a lot of what's going on in their own brain also, right? So a lot of people are using like such platforms for more than just write an email. And even if they're using it for an email, they're using a lot of personal data that kind of goes into these emails that should be private. So how do you think, do you think this will kind of stop people from adopting this Chinese AI software, or is it gonna kind of, because of the lower costing, still move forward?
Yeah, what I think is, as far as adoption is concerned, if we talk about some of the major US players who are into AI space and are utilizing some of these models, you talk about Perplexity, they actually have integrated DeepSeek in their platform. They are considered to be number one answering engine right now in the purview of AI. Then you have Grok. They have also integrated DeepSeek. See, the thing is, there is a element of privacy and data and the whole narrative that we have for China, which could be also be debated, because if you think from China perspective, they will also have something to say why they are doing it and what is their view on US. It's also like a lot of narrative that happens that we consume through media that gives you an image about a country, about everything else, because irrespective of the origin, all of those models are consuming data and they're hosting data. Europe is, for example, a lot more stricter when it comes to data privacy and all. But what I can clearly see that the model is open source, which means you can pretty much download it and sort of host it wherever you want. And when you have that, you pretty much control where data resides, right? So let's say somebody in a startup community, they want to use DeepSeek, they are not sort of using their APIs. They can pretty much own everything that they have offered as an open source thing, and then decide where they want to host their servers. Is it in US? Is it in Europe? Or is it in APAC? So I don't see that major challenge there. It's more of what we've been told about China and the whole narrative against them. As long as things are open source, whether it's on the Meta side, whether it's on the DeepSeek side, there's a lot of control that these guys are giving you in terms of how you are sort of capturing data and where you're storing it, how long you're storing it. So I don't see much of the challenges there. There is also an element of cost that is being highlighted, and that was that like a cornerstone about the whole PR that happened around DeepSeek. And if you unpack this a bit, in order to understand the whole AI life cycle or building that model and utilizing it, there are primarily three cost compartments you can think of. One is the pre-training cost, and the pre-training cost is more like your operating expense that you will have to really incur. And over there they have made a lot of, at least on the paper, they have really claimed that it's almost reduced by 130. So that's a great innovation there. And then there is a second bit, which is the post training cost, which people like myself who are actually working with our team to build some of the utilities on top of these base models, you will have to sort of do a bit of wrangling there in terms of fine tuning these models that they can align with the specific use cases, coming up with some RAG architecture that can add an element of context to the use case that you're solving for. So there is a cost, and then there's some reinforcement learning that you want to introduce and bake into that model. So there is an element of cost there as well. And then the third bit is essentially your inferencing cost. I think you touched upon it a bit somewhere. So while you're using these models, there's an ongoing cost there as well. So we'll have to think collectively. I think the hype that happened was kind of just focusing on the model building cost, and what I really feel eventually what will happen is these models are becoming more like a commodity. Everyone has access to it because it's open source. The running and then fine tuning of the model, that cost is also coming down. So basically, it's available for everyone, whether it's DeepSeek, whether it's any other company. It's a matter of what kind of value and benefits we are deriving from these models while we are solving the use cases.
Definitely. And I guess as a follow-up to that, I just want to understand, like, is this sort of efficiency that you kind of mentioned in the model building cost, is it a signal that there's going to be a fundamental shift in how VCs and big tech really invest in AI? Like, do you see an impact happening here?
Yeah, what I would say is the whole episode that happened with DeepSeek, it was a good mix and a good case study of a great product on one hand and a great marketing on the other hand. And you have those two things together, and at very right time, we all got into it, and there's massive attention globally. But at the base level, when we go into details, like I mentioned, those three costs, they exist. So the DeepSeek, or let's say Llama from Meta, even they are open source and they're available and they will keep on improving and be more efficient. You still need a lot of compute to run those things. When you activate a use case, you will start running on certain infrastructure, and that's generally speaking a bigger cost, and in current scheme of things it's bigger than building a base model that was there. So those consideration we need to think of. I think the whole Nvidia stocks that I think got down to 16% or more. That was a hype, and eventually what will happen is as the cost will go down, there would be a increase in demand as well. And when demand will increase, again there would be a lot of costs involved in order to draw those AI inferences. And that's where when I mentioned why Meta is open sourcing it, because they are running AI inferences worth of $1 billion every day, right? Any improvement there will directly impact their bottom line, their profitability, their ROI. So we just need to keep that in mind. But clearly, on one hand, I would say it is a bit of buzz about the cost, but in real sense, there is still a lot of cost that will go on when we just cover all those three aspects. What is the pre-training? What is the post-training? What about the AI inferencing? But with the innovation and the way they have created this new model and new approach, it certainly is a bigger question for other players where they always sort of dominate with because they have access to so much of resources. There's a lot of abundance. Just throw money, throw resources, throw funding, and let's figure out, without keeping the whole new approach that China has come up, which is a lot more frugal, deriving efficiency. So I would say that's a mix of, I would say, how I observe those things.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Arpit. I think, Rahul, what I'm also trying to understand here is like, when DeepSeek AI is something that's really new right now. but we want to kind of be able to see, is this something that's going to be able to fit in and like stay in the market? And because of that, I'll just love to hear your thoughts on like, where do you kind of see the future of AI, and like what do you think will happen to DeepSeek in the next 3 to 5 years to come?
So it's gonna be a trial of many such tools this year. Maybe the work or the output that we get from these kind of tools and the global adoption of these AI tools, that's gonna set the cornerstone for the success for 2026 for many companies. So maybe I would say towards the end of this year, things will take shape because like it has just come recently in the market, DeepSeek. So people will start using it. People will use it in their different technologies, different ecosystems, different from the operations perspectives. Multiple teams are gonna get their hands dirty on it. So maybe 2025, I would say it's gonna be a kind of testing the waters basically, and finally 2026 will come up with some final conclusion that in what particular direction such kind of technologies are taking us, and primarily or maybe specifically DeepSeek AI, I would say. And but one thing that is for sure right now, that the launch of this DeepSeek AI R1 model has made a significant disruption in the broader AI market by making that much advanced models at really affordable prices and much more than that easily accessible. So it's an open source, it's a cost efficient approach. So this could democratize the AI world, right? So this can help the various companies, like whether they are at the startup level or whether they are like big enterprise level or maybe like they are Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 companies. But one thing is clear, like they have set the bars high, so they can compete with the established players, while big giants will have to re-examine their pricing and their product strategies, because it's no longer, it will be like they have the monopoly and they can go like as they want. But I think introduction of such AI models have made them rethink of that there is something other than them that also exists on the earth. So it's one disruption that they have created, and it's a great buzz nowadays. And with strong backing from China's strategic ambitions, I would say, DeepSeek may also influence global AI geopolitics. Potentially, they may challenge the dominance of US tech giants. So it's gonna be a game changer, I would say. The next 3 5 years definitely, like whatsoever tools we are using, because there are like infinite number of tools running in multiple companies of different sizes, but different number of employees, but different techies. But down the line, after 2 3 years, the bar that is currently being set, many of such tools will shape their kind of a working environment or working ecosystem or their working methodologies in alignment with the AI models. I believe it's gonna impact hugely and vastly from a small startup to a big giant at multiple levels on a different and variable scale. Maybe Arpit, you can add a couple of cents to it.
Yeah, definitely. So I was also actually thinking around the other players, the big players. I'm actually very close to the whole Google world, and they are also in a kind of a dilemma right now because there's a huge chunk of money that they get from their ad platform, and things are changing very fast right now. I mean, you and I can easily confirm that for any general purpose query, we are no more going to Google, rather than we feel a better experience in, let's say, ChatGPT or Gemini or you name other platforms. Even DeepSeek is not that bad, although it's a little slow. So I would say things will change dramatically down the line. Google has a couple of choices. One is, can they really pivot their search engine game more from this whole new AI era that is emerging at the cost of cannibalizing their market share that we have seen in terms of the advertising? Because obviously they are public listed companies, they are answerable to the investors and then the whole ecosystem out there. So it is going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a lot of other players in a similar situation. The general pattern has been, if you can't pivot, just buy it. So a lot of the bigger players will try to consolidate, will try to acquire emerging smaller players. For example, there could be a likelihood that Google might acquire Perplexity. You never know, because they are clearly they're saying that they don't compete, but they're clearly competing with Google. And somewhere in the initial mission of Google, they wanted to really create search engine that can give you most perfect answer. But what ended up was the list of those 10 different links that we'll have to research and really identify what's most relevant to what we are looking for, and that has changed now. And there's still a lot of money pouring into the advertising that Google control, but the whole model from being ad driven to subscription driven, it's a new game altogether. And then we see a similar situation in other bigger players. So it's an amazing time. I think we all will have to pivot, unlearn, relearn. It is for our, at the individual level also. There's a lot of things that's required at the company level, at the organization level, at the country level as well. I mean, like, clearly, if China can do it, why cannot India, for example, right? And I'm sure there are people who are working, given, and there's a lot of inspiration. I would say that DeepSeek has given to India. When I speak to some of our people in the similar space, we all are discussing about this. Why not India? So let's see.
No, I think that's really insightful, and I think this has been such a lovely discussion. I think we have had the opportunity to dive really deep into some of the aspects of DeepSeek AI, but also AI in general. So before we start kind of wrapping up this session, any closing thoughts, any thoughts about the future ahead that you'd like to share? Rahul, maybe you can start us off, and then Arpit, you can add on to that.
Cool. I would say we are entering into a democratized AI landscape, I would say, wherein with the introduction of DeepSeek's R1, maybe we can consider that as a mainstream, a wider range of companies from startup to established firms will be able to leverage advanced AI without massive investments. So this shift could democratize AI innovation and challenge the dominance of the traditional tech giants. So maybe like we all have seen, like just within the 1 week of the launch, like as Arpit mentioned, shares of Nvidia plunged by close to 17%. Then Google partnered Alphabet, which has heavily invested in AI development, lost roughly, I would say, 99 billions in market value. Then Microsoft as well poured millions of dollars into OpenAI, lost almost $71 billion in their value. So we are into the era of a drastic transformation. We used to talk about the digital transformation initially, but now I would say digital as well as a drastic transformation. So let's see what the future has for us. But for now, AI seems to be the need of every business. So who can take the advantage of it are definitely gonna make some good amount of revenue, or maybe I would say the operational efficiency as well.
Rahul, I think you made a great point around cost and the kind of money that's really going on. And my focus area has always been the RO, understanding whether it's making sense from business context. I think that would be a vital point. In fact, we were discussing this yesterday with our CEO. Let's say with all this AI chatbot and agentic AI, where we are really saying that we will cut the jobs and then there would be AI agent that will do everything. I think what is really required is to understand the cost benefit analysis. So let's say you have an agent or an ecosystem of agents. What's the annual CTC for those agents? Is it less or more than a regular person who's working in your office? Can we get into those kind of numbers and understand what's the real ROI of AI? I think that is something that probably will unpack this year because the base models are ready. There is some level of work already done. Whether you pick any big player, be it Salesforce, be it HubSpot, they have some offering around AI agents and AI layer. But then everyone is trying to understand what could be that pricing strategy, what could be that pricing model, what could be that combo that can really work well for their own business and also work for their end customers. So a lot will happen, and I think it's a very interesting, exciting time given now we all can leverage these open source models. On one side, we have the clouds, whether it's Azure or AWS or GCP, which means the infrastructure is ready, right? You spin a server today and run a model and come up with a great use case that can solve customer problem. Great. But at the same time, the question is that is it delivering a tangible ROI and business value that is sustainable?
Definitely. I think thank you again for, kind of giving your final thoughts on this. I'd like to take a minute to really kind of summarize the biggest takeaways I had from this session today. I think something that kind of came up front was the future of search being changed. So I think Arpit, you kind of mentioned about that, and like a search engine that understands exactly what you mean and gives you the perfect answer. No endless scrolling, ads cluttering your screen. That's the kind of future we're looking for. But I think to kind of get there, Google kind of has to rethink their entire revenue model. They have to shift from the ad-driven empire that they're on. And it's a massive shift that's not going to happen overnight, right? So that's something that's really evolving. Another aspect that really touched me in today's conversation was like we started off thinking US is the king of breakthrough ideas and they have good universities, research labs and culture that really awards risk taking. But China is also insanely fast at, kind of scaling and executing these things. And while American companies have spent years in launching and protecting, their tech, Chinese firms are kind of like, doing this launch iteration and doing it in a very agile manner, if we might say, doing it in a very fast pace. And there are other countries also like, India can potentially also get into this kind of atmosphere and contribute. AI is no longer going to be democratized or like have a monopoly of just, one particular player. There are going to be many within from one country, like we kind of talked about, with Meta and Google also having their AI sort of ecosystems. But another aspect that we kind of touched in today that really stands out to me is just talking about how investments are going to be rewritten. We kind of talked about how for VCs and even big tech, how they're investing in AI is going to change. I think they built rivals of ChatGPT with like just 6 million by focusing on efficiency rather than the size of the data that it has. So I think like there are like the future what's kind of okay to say now is that AI is evolving at a very lightning speed and DeepSeek is just one of the players that's going to change the game. The next few years, who decides, who will adapt, who will fall behind, and what the future will look like is something we'll need multiple discussions to have. And I think from this conversation, it's kind of safe to say that like this is just the beginning. So thank you so much. Is there anything I missed in the summary that you guys might want to add before we just wrap up this session?
I think great summary. I would just add that do we really need ChatGPT to summarize things because you've done a great job in summarizing on the lighter note.
No, thank you so much. I
Let me
think
cross check with the DeepSeek.
just no, I think again, thank you so much to both of you for, being a part of this session and kind of really sharing what's to come and what's really happening right now. I think I learned a lot from this session, and I hope our listeners did too. So, as last thoughts, I guess Arpit, you can start us off. If people, our listeners, want to learn more about you and your work, where can they really reach out to you? And then Rahul, maybe you can share after that.
Yeah, I'm an open network. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, and if you want to learn about Big Growth, our AI analytics platform, just mail me at info@digrowth.com.
Amazing. And Rahul, for you.
Yeah, equally like I'm available on the LinkedIn by the name of Rahul Sindwani and like a proud member of Growth Natives team. So maybe under the Growth Natives website, you can find me there as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rahul and Arpit. Today was a great session. And, I think this is a podcast where we're here to kind of keep you updated on what's really happening. So, if you like this episode, please share your thoughts with us. And till next time, stay curious and keep innovating. Thank you so much.